fear is the only emotion that will force you to tap into your full potential. When you're
Mm.
truly scared, you're going to do what it takes. When you're really, really scared, when you're past the point of overthinking or being paralyzed, you will do what it takes. And it's the only, I mean, we've read that in so many books or heard that in so many, you've seen it in so many movies or heard in so many stories. When someone does something incredibly difficult physically or mentally out of fear, you will do what it takes, you know? And that's why I think people need to learn to trust fear instead of avoiding it.
It's the little details that are vital. Little things make big things happen. John Wooden. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Viktor Frankl. I, panouis Simon, extreme et accomplissement. Extreme blooming and fulfillment. My guest in this episode of Passing the Torch is a professional skier and base jumper, two-time world record holder, and the man known as Super Frenchie. Passing the Torch with Matthias Giraud starts now. First and foremost, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Martin.
How was my French? I had to sound it out into like syllables and break it up.
It was tricky. I'm not trying to crush your ego. It's just French is so difficult.
No,
I
it's
got a
fine.
couple I got a couple words here and there, but it's yeah, you know, I often say that French is probably the most difficult language in the world. It's just
Yeah.
it's because we have so many rules, so many irregularities as well to memorize, and the pronunciation is like no other language, that it's super hard to nail. Even French people don't speak perfect French, you know?
Yeah. How do you say extreme blooming and fulfillment in French? Because that's what I was trying to say.
Well, extreme blooming fulfillment is épanouissement. The word
Ah,
épanouissement, yeah. And I guess if you Americanize épanouissement, something like that. But épanouissement is extreme blooming fulfillment. It's definitely something strong in French culture, which we try to achieve, which is very interesting because France is the country that invented the term la joie de vivre, the joy of life, the term épanouissement, yet we're the number one consumer of antidepressant in the world.
oh, I didn't know that. So
I-
just
it's
wow.
it's an interesting paradox, I think. I guess existential thoughts come also with an element of despair, you know, and yeah, it's often it's something I've often you know reflected on. You know, France is a very interesting country with, you know, just like anybody else. Everybody else is yeah, every other country can be a paradox as well, you know. But there's definitely some strong paradoxes in France
Yeah.
for sure.
I just went to or last summer now, not just, but I went to Paris last summer for 5 days with my
Wonderful.
family. So we're able to just yeah, see all the, of course, all the tourist stuff. And we stayed at a Airbnb. I don't want to say downtown because it's not. I realize like France or Paris has different like sections, whatever. But we were within walking distance of the Louvre, and then the Notre Dame Cathedral was at the other direction, all within maybe a 10-minute walk. So that was pretty cool.
Nice, you were in the heart of it. That's great. Yeah, my wife is from Paris.
Yeah, yeah, and then the river is right outside our window or balcony, and so it was pretty cool. And they still had some of the stuff from the Paris Summer Olympics up outside of the yeah, it was. I mean, it was pretty cool. They had where they lit up the Olympic torch. They had
Oh,
that
okay.
display, so we got to see that, and it was like a week before it was being taken down. So that was pretty cool.
Did you watch did you
Yeah, I
watch
went
the
it.
opening ceremony? Oh, sorry.
I did. I did. Yeah, I did. I
Nice.
sure did. And it was so long though. I was just like they had the person galloping through the whatever the river or just through the city, and I thought it was cool, but I was like, when's this gonna end? Uh,
That's funny. My buddies played in it.
yeah.
They had the metal band that played on the edge of the castle there, la conciergerie. Anyway, there are some
Oh
buddies from
yeah,
France.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
destroying it. It was
It
awesome.
was. It was. No, it was different watching. It was completely different than the Winter Olympics that we just had, the opening ceremony. So it was just a different. It was cool to see the different cultures represented. Represented. It was different. Italy, it seemed like it had a more art. All the famous painters and all these artists, and France was just very much just about like art itself. And
Yeah, it was interesting to see the comments about it. But anyway, we don't have to dive into that. That's a big subject.
yeah. So one question I'd like to start off each podcast with is, why is life great right now?
Why is life great right now, you said? The-
Yeah, why is life great right now?
Life is great because I'm able to live the life as an adult that I wished for as a 4 or 5 year old. So
Yeah. So that's a great segue because if you, how do you explain what you do to a 4 or 5 year old?
it's funny because I'm filming a series right now, and the camera guy just asked the same question to my son, who's 12, but he's like, "How do you describe what your dad does?" And yeah, and so it's yes, I make a living by jumping off stuff with skis and parachutes, and that's it's pretty weird.
No, that's great. I mean, my daughter's 14 and she's always very interested on who I have on my podcast. So she was like, "Who do you have coming up this week?" So I had watched the documentary and just various things about you, and she was uh like, "What's this guy do?" And I'm like, "I don't know how to explain it." I'm like, "He's an extreme skier," is the best. So I don't, there's I'm not doing it justice, but it's just extreme skiing. I don't know how else really to explain it, but there's so much more. There's so many different layers to you. Um,
I like it's a very odd quest, you know. It's I guess it goes back to the French heritage of the Alps. You know, the Alps, if you think about them, like the Chamonix area was the birthplace of modern mountaineering. And this is still the place where things are being pushed, being reinvented. And in the 80s, early 90s, when there was this big, extreme push of activities, bungee jumping was coming alive, and then base jumping was really starting, and paragliding was being pushed, and Chamonix. So I grew up 45 minutes away from Chamonix, in a little town called Saint-Gervais, and but the Chamonix was the epicenter of multidisciplinary approach to the mountains. So people were steep skiers, extreme snowboarders, paragliders, base jumpers, rock climbers, ice climbers. They did it all. And I'm only a tame version of that because I only partake in a few amount of activities, but I try to do them well. And it's now it's become, yeah, a blend of alpinism, steep skiing, and base jumping. So it's extremely fulfilling. It's a very demanding journey, but I love it.
my daughter's 14, your son is 12, so he's on the cusp of being a teenager. Regardless of what you do, does he still think you're lame and not cool? Like most teenagers, they think their parents are just dorks, but
It's funny because actually I'm very lucky for this. The camera guy, when we're filming, just asked my son if he thinks what I do is cool, and he was like, "Yeah, I think it's the coolest thing." So he has a ton of respect for
that's
for
awesome.
for what I do, and he wants to skydive. He doesn't have an interest in base jumping, which is, probably good because skydiving is so much safer and it's not that much. The death rate in skydiving is 0.01%, so it's very, very low. But yeah, he has a lot of respect for what I do, and yeah, we connect, which is very important. I'm super lucky, but like, yeah, half his friends, follow me on social media, and then he goes to school. It's like, "Hey, did you see what your dad just did? Like, last week or something?" And it's like, "Yeah, I saw." So he thinks it's
Yeah.
cool, and I'm lucky to have this son who looks at what I do, respects it, but it also resonates with him.
Yeah. I mean, you do have a very unique way of earning a living, to say the least. How has that journey both been rational and intentional?
Uh, Always, since I was a child, I think I was fortunate to be born with a certain level of intention. My first existential thoughts were maybe at 4 years old when I was like, our passion is the only tangible thing that can create the wealth of being, not talking necessarily financial wealth, just there's just a rich life. A rich life it relies on our passions and accomplishing them. And I realized that early on as a child, and always had this very uncompromising approach to my craft, to my passions, to what I wanted to do, and also knew what I wanted to do very, very early on. So so it was
Mm.
very intentional. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get to where I am today. So I always managed societal expectations, family expectations, duties, but also balancing it with my carving my own path, which can be very, very tricky in modern society, you know.
Yeah, man, there's so many things I want to unpack there, and I've had a chance to. This isn't the first time we've chatted. We met virtually a month or so ago through the Outlier Project, and I actually had a chance to ask you a question, which I was, and we've chatted on the phone, which is pretty cool. Um, you know, but you did mention, having your first existential thought when you were 4 years old, which is so interesting to me. Do you do you feel like was childhood a burden for you because of
Oh,
that?
yeah, childhood sucked. I hated childhood. You know, everybody's like, "Oh, I want to go back to being a child." It's like, no, fuck that. Like it's you're it is a necessary time that we all have to go through for evolutionary purposes, and you have to earn your emancipation. But when you're a driven child and you know what you want to do, and you still have to check off all the boxes of growth that are imposed to you by the outside environment, was completely frustrating, infuriating. I understood why I had to do it, but I hated doing it. I could not wait. I could not wait my whole childhood to be an adult. It sounds super weird, but I knew what I wanted to do, and it just everything else is such a burden, you know?
No, and that's what's so unique about you. One of the many things. By the way, the reason why we were supposed to record this last month, but you of course had to reschedule. But definitely the most unique. We won't get into details, but that was by far the most unique reason that you had to reschedule. The You had a doctor's appointment, so I was like, uh, yeah, you're like, hey man, I got this thing going on. I'm like, I'll take that. I guess that it's a valid excuse, but
You know,
um
even extreme athletes need to go through the colonoscopies. It's just the way it is.
yeah, extreme athletes, extreme appointments. No,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
no, I love that. You talked about there are, and it's not just the French, education system. It's the all American education system. Like there's requirements that you have to do for the most part, right? But if you know what you want to do and you're so driven and just obsessed with it, it could feel like life is slowing you down. But France is such a culture, or in a culture is a tradition heavy, or in a culture as tradition heavy as France. How did you decide what to honor and what to outgrow?
I think it was very instinctual. Um, France is a wonderful country. It is very rich, yet we have. I always say it's kind of like the opposite of the US, where we don't have much professional freedom in France because everything is very scrutinized and controlled by the government. But on an everyday life, on a social level, like when I'm talking social, I'm not talking about social programs. I'm talking about your social life every day. We have less
Yeah.
laws, less rules. So you have more everyday freedom, less professional freedom. The US is kind of like the opposite, where you have full professional freedom here. You can kind of do whatever you want. You can start a company in 15 minutes on the internet. But when it comes to everyday life, there is rules for everything. There are laws for everything, depending on the states that you live in. If you're in Alaska, it's pretty wild. If you're in California, there's going to be a cop behind every tree, you know? But the difference, aside from that, with France is that it is a very old society, and you have a lot of very strict social codes and social expectations on how to behave, how to carry yourself, how to interact. It has changed now, of course. You know, I'm 42 now, so France. 30, 40 years ago is different than France now. But growing up, the weight of tradition was very burdensome, while it also made the country very rich. The other thing is, I always gravitated towards mountain culture. I was not born in the mountains, but the Alps have a very strong mountain culture. And for me, I resonated with that culture more than anywhere else. You know, my parents lived in Normandy at first. I was born there. Then they moved to south of France. So I would always go back and forth between
Wow.
the Alps and other regions. And I hated living in the south of France. It was such a burden. You know, all the tourists said, "Oh, Provence is so beautiful." I was like, "No, screw that." You know, when you dream about Mont Blanc, the smell of lavender sucks. You know, and I it was hot in the summer. Culturally, people had a different mindset. It was really, I really experienced the burden of society living in southern France, being immersed in a culture that I didn't connect with at all. But when I was in the mountains and when I went to school in ski academy in the mountains, I was lucky to be selected in a ski team in the Alps, even though I was not born there. I was the only kid in ski academy that was not born in the Alps. It is well, actually what's funny is in my year at ski academy, being the only kid not born in the Alps, I'm the only one who turned pro. Probably because I had
Wow.
more passion. I didn't take skiing for granted. All the mountain kids, you know, their friends' dad was an ex-Olympian or World Cup racer, and so it's expected out of them to be at that level. And then most of them were burned out about with skiing around age 14, 15. They don't really want to do anything with that. For me, I had to every day I had on skis, I had to earn it. So I had to make every day count, be very purposeful and intentional about it. I had technical deficiencies. I offset them by training twice harder. It's kind of like this old story of just going for it, you know. Now I have a different approach at 40 years old, but I had to overtrain for so long to be able to catch up on the time that I lost. But once I was in the Alps, having the balance of ski racing, training, mountain culture, and education there, my grades shot up. I did much better because I had a balance. I had what I wanted to do. And so I think it's a story about balance, I think, and know yourself. And I knew myself early on. It's just the
Yeah.
environment couldn't align, or I couldn't align with the environment. The environment doesn't have to align with you. You have to adapt to your environment, but I couldn't align with the environment that I was immersed in. But once I went to the Alps, everything made sense. And this is when I realized, okay, this is how I need to craft my life. You know, I would study until midnight. I'd wake up at 6 in the morning and do my 200 sit-ups, 140 push-ups before even going to training. I would go to training, then I go to school, then I do my homework, go to bed, and wake up the next day and do it all over again. And I didn't mind. I loved it. I went to bed with a dream and I woke up with a plan every day. It was amazing. It was amazing, you know. And
That's good
this at
right there. I'm going to clip that up. Yeah.
at 14 years old, and that never left me ever since. I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's still going. So skiing for over 40. Ski Academy was 30 years ago, and it's still is strong inside of me. And when I went to school for college, I went to Lyon, big city in France, as close as I could from the mountains. But I did all my internships for business school in the Alps. You know, like that was the deal with my parents. They're like, do 1 year in college, and if you don't like it, drop out, and then you're on your own. And that's what I was planning on doing. I was like, whatever, I'll just do a year in college, and then. But then I blew my knee the first year because while I was working in the Alps on my lunch break, I was hitting half pipes and doing flips and stuff, and I landed wrong and bent my knee the wrong way and blew everything
Oh,
in there. Destroyed my ACL, tibial plateau, meniscus. It was pretty brutal. And then then started the tough journey. But after that, I moved to the US, and then I was able to kind of have create that frame of ski academy, but in a foreign country. And I was able to ski 5 days a week while going to school full time. And last thing I know, I'm graduating with a degree in business, magna cum laude, and a pro skier and a skydiving license. It was about finding the right environment and creating that structure for myself that enabled me to reach my goals.
yeah.
So it was tricky. I had to go halfway across the world to make that happen, but it worked, you know?
And here you are. Here we are. Hey, everyone. I want to take a quick break from today's episode to talk about the show's sponsor. Are you retiring or separating from the military soon? Looking for an alternative to the Veterans Group Life Insurance, also known as the VGLI? Reach out to Dan Guzman, Life Solutions. Dan is a 27-year United States Air Force veteran and retired command chief. After a lifetime of service, Dan's mission is simple: protect yours. As an independent life insurance producer licensed across multiple states, Dan specializes in helping military families find smart, affordable term life alternatives to VGLY and insurance policies that fit your life and budget. If you want coverage that makes sense, reach out today at Dan Guzman, lifesolutions.com. The link for that will be in the show notes. Now back to the episode. And I think
Yeah.
that's so important about finding the right physical environment, but also sounds like you had the right mental environment, that you framed it yourself. What comes to mind when I say horizontal mind expansion?
This is how a horizontal mind expansion is. When people like ask me a lot of the time how I feel when I jump or when I ski, it's intense clarity with total composure. Think like Viper in Top
Mm.
Gun. You have Mavericks and
Yeah.
Iceman who like, explosive, cool. There's the bravado. They're like the playboys, good looking guys. But then you have the old instructor there with his mustache and still his spark in his eye, who's just doesn't seem to get phased by anything, but he feels it all, but he's gonna carry on with the mission no matter what. And this is how I feel when I jump at that stage in my life, when I jump or when I ski. I'm in it, I'm aware, and I feel almost like my brain is growing laterally. It's very strange. I feel literally this mind expansion horizontally. That's how what I feel every time I jump. I'm just like whew, hyper aware, hyper poised. It almost feels like nothing special is happening as it is happening because you're just doing it. You're doing it perfectly, right? You're
Yeah.
self-calibrated. But then when I land and I'm like, oh my God, I was so sick, and then you fully realize what just happened. And it's it's an that horizontal mind expansion, I think, has really happened the last years when I feel like I've really achieved a level of mastery within my craft, and being able to reach the most daring, audacious goals that I was set for myself, but being able to do them with total serenity, intense serenity and composure. And this
Mm.
is when your mind just yeah, explodes horizontally. It's amazing.
No, that's I love that. I just love that, just that concept or just that idea. And you said that in that call last month or whenever it was, and I took a note for myself, and because I never thought of it like that. And it ties into fear, which I've also heard you talk a lot about. We often think fear is loud and dramatic, but the most powerful fear, I think, is quiet. People live in avoidance, not action. Um, in those fearful moments, what's harder, trusting your preparation or trusting yourself?
Well, you come from the military, the good old saying, you don't rise up to the occasion, you fall back to your level of training. And that's exactly what it is in the mountains. My my
You're
friend
100% right. Yeah.
my friend Matt Gerdes uses that all the time. He manufactures base jumping equipment and wingsuits, and he always says that. And I think
Mhm.
it's a quote that comes from the SEALs or something like that. So when you're in the situation, fear is an indicator. Fear is a barometer for your environment. That's all it is. And we overthink it. We think of it as like a bad omen or it's a bad sign or whatever. No, we have to translate the information that has been given to us through fear. It's like a catalyst. And based on that, you will make a decision. But then once you transition into action, you have to trust that you will do the right thing within the given situation. And with the proper training and experience and iteration, which is not only just physical repetition, but constant mental visualization, absorption, assimilation. When you're going for it,
Yeah.
you're going to do what it takes and you get this. But being able to have that trust within yourself, but yet that wariness about your environment keeps you alert. And you will, I turn around from jumps sometimes. I've turned around sometimes because I'm scared, but I'm scared because something is not lining up. And I just and if it's just anxiety, well then you just work through that. Just do your breathing exercises, concentrate, visualize, execute, go through your routine, and then you'll be fine. And but I think it's if there are warnings of the mind, it's because there are environmental elements that need to be taken into consideration.
Do you still feel fear in your forearms?
Yeah. It's funny when I transitioned from so in a project, so I go from an element of comfort, right? I'm in my bed, I'm comfortable, I wake up, I grab my bag, and I drive to the mountain, and then I hike up the mountain. And when I hike up, it's always kind of like that transition phase from comfort to action. I'm not at the top of the mountain where I'm going to ski or where I'm going to jump. And I often fear, as I'm hiking up, I feel this extra blood rushing through my forearms. This is where I feel my fear most of the time. But yeah, it's interesting. My friend Xavier is a snowboarder, and he says he can smell it. He can smell the blood in his nose every time. I think it's a blood flow thing. So I feel it in my forearms somehow. And but yeah, it's I think it comes with repetition and having an acute sense and awareness of self. And yeah, it's in many ways it's so much easier in the mountains than everyday
Yeah.
life and in society in many ways. You know, like the warnings are it's black or white in the mountains. Often it can be dark gray or light gray, but you kind of know where you stand. Whereas society, we don't always know where we stand. It's a lot harder. And yeah, I wish I could have that sharpness from the mounds in everyday life as well.
Yeah.
but
No,
but at
that's
least the mounds are a reference point, so it kind of gives me a frame of reference to be able to apply to other environments. So it does help.
yeah, exactly. Hey, going back to fear, do you feel like how does fear unleash does it somehow turn into are you able to turn fear into unleashing a superpower?
Yeah, fear is the only emotion that will force you to tap into your full potential. When you're
Mm,
truly scared, you're going to do what it takes. When you're really, really scared, when you're past the point of overthinking or being paralyzed, you will do what it takes. And it's the only, I mean, we've read that in so many books or heard that in so many, you've seen it in so many movies or heard in so many stories. When someone does something incredibly difficult physically or mentally out of fear, you will do what it takes, you know? And that's why I think people need to learn to trust fear instead of avoiding it.
yeah, no, I love that thought. So what's for people how does tapping into your into fear because most people are afraid to do that, but how does tapping into fear and facing fear make life feel richer and also in a good way heavier?
I think it's the journey of honesty with yourself and the environment, you know. We
Yeah.
all lie to ourselves at some point or at one point or another, or we minimize the environmental threat or even beauty that we have around us, you know. And I think fear is just about it's just it's not about managing it. It's about just accepting it. It just is. It's just part of the process, right? It's just there, you know. And just embrace the anxiety, embrace all this stuff. The overthinking is just part of the process. Don't overthink overthinking. It will just start overthinking because that means you checking all the case scenarios, you preparing yourself for action. And as you dive in it, then it will find its place. You always have that little level of anxiety, you know, when you're on the edge and you're about to push off. But as you do your breathing exercises, there's a certain liberation that takes place. You know, some weight is very lifted off your
Yeah.
shoulders, your mind becomes sharper and clear. You kind of have that balance between excitement and fear, about confidence but also threat, you know. And it is fear is a tool of transitioning into the ultimate state of being, you know. And it's uncomfortable every time, and it's not easy. It's not easy, but as you go, you I always say that I have the privilege to uh, repeatedly create the apogees of my life through my profession, the highest moments of my life, the high notes. But every time it comes with that journey of accepting fear and just and trusting that, you know, I'll do whatever I have to do to get it done, you know. If you're worried about something that can get in the way of you getting it done, it means that you're not prepared, that you don't have the skills. So it's also, it's a, you have to be pragmatic in the moment as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you like how much of elite performance is actually emotional regulation.
Yeah, emotional. I guess it's the only really true emotional regulation I have is probably anxiety. You know, managing anxiety, regulate through breathing, things like that. Because I'm naturally a very anxious person.
Yeah.
I'm a huge overthinker, and so I take jumping in the mountains as an exercise of sharpness and shedding the unnecessary. But it's always gruesome and difficult. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it's by the way, you have so many great just like these little quotes that you just drop. There's so many like just little like gems and nuggets. It's like it's really good.
Thank you.
No, it's fun. Even from that call last month, I took a lot of notes about you and I was like, this is awesome. Um I did want yeah, if you could no longer jump tomorrow, is there anything that would feel unfinished?
Well, obviously, I have goals and objectives I'm trying to achieve. I have a list of things that I'm trying to complete, you know. But also, there comes a point when I don't jump just to jump. I jump with purpose. You know, when I go through a lot of jumps because I'm training for something, the days of getting jumps, just to get the number up, are kind of over for me. Unless again, I'm training specifically. If I get a new wingsuit or something like that, I'm going to be like, okay, I got to do 30 or 40 or 50 skydives before I'm going to jump off a cliff, and then I got to do these cliffs, this cliff, this cliff before I can jump off this cliff. You know, so you establish a path. Um, but what would feel unfinished would be probably the goals that I've set for myself that I want to achieve. But at the same time, too, it's also uh, being able to immerse myself in the love of the craft. And so I would, I would probably do something else very intensely as well, because I do find value in
Yeah.
becoming not necessarily, I mean, hopefully good, but to have the value of achieving as high as a level as you can in the set in a given craft, you know. So whether it's, right now I'm learning more and more alpinism techniques and rope techniques because I have to, but it's super fun, building anchors in the ice to do rappels with my skis and crampons. And I do want to get more into ice climbing, things like that. I love surfing. I've had the privilege to surf big waves a couple times, like 35-foot waves, and that's amazing. And So I do like this cross pollination as well. So if I couldn't jump anymore, I would probably have something else very demanding that I would immerse myself into for sure.
Are there any I know we talked a lot about fear, anxiety, and just courage, but what boring habits matter more than courage in your world?
Boring habits.
Yeah, like what matter because there's always like the top line stuff or kind of, here's my best advice on how to face your fear, anxiety, all these different things, or big jumps. But what's a boring habit? What boring habit matters more than courage?
um, I always say, because people see it from the outside and they're like, "Oh, you live a great life," and I'm like, I live actually a pretty boring life. I wake up, get my kid ready for school, I train. I prepare my projects. I watch almost. I still take the time to live and enjoy what I'm doing, but I try to very very conscious about my diet. Everything is when when you every action, every everything we undertake consciously or unconsciously has meaning behind it, and so everything you do can bring you closer to your goals or push your goal further away. And so I try every day to work towards my goal while still being able to um, enjoy life as well. But I have kind of like a pretty no, I don't want to say a routine because every day is different, but I kind of have a very regimented life in many ways too, you know. Depending on the
Yeah.
season, of course. You know, in the winter, I train about 3 times a week. I do cold plunges almost every day as a tool of reducing body inflammation, recovery, but also mind strengthening. And I go ski, 5 times a week, but then also spend a lot of time behind my computer, planning projects, outlining, logistics, and all this stuff. So there, but I think, yeah, that's the thing. Every action, every day, are aligned towards my goal. Even if I take a little nap almost every day as well. But like, I'm like, okay, cool. I have to take a nap for about 30, 45 minutes and do this, and then I have to, as soon as I get up, I got to get that going. So it's it's very demanding, but I think the the why gives a reason to the how.
Oh, that's good. I want to just, as we're wrapping up, I want to transition to some lighter topics. These are miscellaneous questions. There's no real rhyme or reason, just random stuff. But one thing I like to do in most episodes, I call it the name game, where I'm just going to say a name, and I ask that you provide one word or one sentence that comes to mind when you hear this person's name. And the first one is Jesse Hall.
Jesse Hall, base mentor. Jesse was a competitor in big mountain comps when I first moved to the US. We competed together in extreme skiing competitions, how they were called back in the day, but they were just free ride comps. And we shared a couple sponsors together. And then Jesse taught me how to base jump. You know, and yeah, Jesse Hall. He's a
He
wild
created
man.
a monster. Yeah, he created this monster.
Well, he's a monster
Yeah,
himself too, so he was just two
yeah.
monsters meeting.
Uh, the second name is Shane McConkey.
Shane McConkey. Shane was the first base jumper I ever met. He was the first Red Bull athlete in the US. He was the pioneer in the modern form of ski base jumping. And he is, being the first base jumper I ever met, he's the guy who told me what I needed to do to become a base jumper, and I got it done. And Jesse was actually a common friend as well of Shane and me. And yeah, Shane McConkey, he's the man. He died, unfortunately, in 2009. March 26, 2009, on a wingsuit ski base jump. So he was skiing with a wingsuit, doing a double backflip, clicking off his skis, and flying away in a wingsuit. He had done that 30 or 40 times, and one of the skis got stuck,
Yeah.
and that sent him to the ground. But Shane was a great man.
Yeah, and I just like to give people say names in the podcast sometimes just as a reminder. They're not forgotten, right? They're still
Oh,
legends and they can at least be
absolutely.
podcast famous. Uh, last name and certainly not least is Jeffrey McDonald.
Oh, Jeff. Jeff was a family friend who became a mentor. Jeff had a difficult life. He came of a poor family in Massachusetts. His dad was beating him. He was the definition of a self-made man. Had a wonderful uncle who gave him some guidelines in life. He was a dad at 20 or 21. He put himself through school and an MBA, and then built, a fortune with his business partner. But that's not what made Jeffrey special. Jeffrey was a mentor to several persons, and if he saw potential in you, he did everything he could to give you a push. And he's the guy who helped me move to the US. Before I even knew it, he had contacted a university. He had carved out a plan for me in the US. He's like, all right, do this, do that, do that. So he opened all these doors. Then I had to, close the deals and make it happen. But he's the guy who saw potential and gave me a push so I could turn my dreams into a reality. And Jeffrey unfortunately died about 14 years ago, 13 years ago, and but I was able to go on his deathbed and say thank you, which was great.
Yeah. Last, actually, one bonus name for you. This is the most wild of the bunch, the most crazy of names of the bunch, name of the
You you,
bunch,
you
Scott
did your
McGregor.
research. Scott McGregor. Scott, the Outlier Project. Yeah, Scott is how we connected. Friend of a friend. That's how we connected. And then I we text often, and he created the Outlier Project, Outlier magazine as well. And he's a connector of people and a unique thinker. And yeah, he's an incredible person. So yeah, I need to do
I'm
more
gonna
stuff with the
bleep certain
outlier.
words.
So
Yeah, I'm gonna bleep certain words, even though you didn't say anything bad about him. I'm gonna make it seem like Scott McGregor, you talking like Scott McGregor, bleep, 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 bleep. Just make no.
that be you would laugh about that. But yeah, no, nothing bad to say about Scott. He's an incredible guy. He's a connector of minds.
Yeah, that's a good a connector of minds. That's really good. Yeah, that's a great way to explain them. This next question, this might be a very real possibility if it hasn't happened already. But if there was a giant billboard with your picture on it for the world to see and your message on it, where would you want that billboard to be? And what would you want that message to say? And everyone had to read it.
Perhaps, oh man, um, I think I'd want it to be something obviously reflecting my craft, in probably a picture of the Alps or something like that. And
Yeah.
I think what would have to say, I'd say dare to maximize your life. I don't want to do like the whole inspirational stuff or
Ooh.
whatever, but the end is make the most out of your life. That's all we can do. And I think if people actually can focus on making the most out of their life, um, things will uh, naturally fall into an element of ethos, pathos, logos, and you focus on your beliefs and aspirations with a sense of passion, but also logic. And I think things can find their place more organically in a world that can feel very scattered, sometimes confrontational, hurtful, and I think people could if people focus on maximizing their lives, I truly think it could create a more positive dynamic internationally. I think a lot of it is when people try to tell others what to do is, and I guess maximizing your life, technically, I'm telling someone else what to do, but when people are trying to tell someone else how to live their life, which is different. Um, yeah, this is when things become conflictual, dangerous, and if people can make the most out of their existence, the well-being of society starts with the individual first. You can't just go from big to small. You have to every little piece has to be solid so we can have a strong cohesion. It's the old saying, right? A chain is as strong as the weakest link. So if we
Mm.
all reinforce ourselves and our personal paths and journeys, we'll have more cohesion, I think, generally in the world. So
That was really deep and really good. I almost feel bad for saying this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I know the perfect place where your billboard could be. Um, it could just hear me. It could be outside the doctor's office for the colonoscopy place. It could be just it could be or they could have a photo like a picture of you and they come in, they walk in, says maximize your life or something. It's you just like, just airborne off some cliff and
with
they're
with
like,
the,
what the hell does that have to do with anything? Um, I do have a few more questions actually. So last year I published episode 100 of my podcast, and what I started doing in that since that episode is I started a tradition. I want to pass the torch between episode and guest. So, what's a question or a quote that I can use in a future episode with a future guest? To be determined.
hmm, a quote from our conversation for the next guest.
Or yeah, I mean whatever you want. Like if there's something that or a question you're like that I could use in a future episode with someone. Something it could be anything, but not anything. It doesn't have to be from this episode.
Okay, so anything. Okay. Well, I think I'll probably go, I do enjoy philosophy and reading things about that. And I think there are two quotes that were probably two of the most impactful quotes that Actually, maybe three. So one is Viktor Frankl, that he actually got a quote. It's a quote from Nietzsche, technically, but he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. And so pretty much you can, if you have strong enough a direction, you can endure anything to get there. The other one was from a dear friend who was very impactful in a very pivotal moment in my life. And she used a quote from, not in a religious way, but it was a quote from Carl Jung that said, "No tree it is said can grow. No tree it is said can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." So you have to be a full person, and tap into your darkest side and understand your darkest side to actually seek a life of blooming and épanouissement. And the third quote is anti-victim mentality, which would be from Nietzsche himself, which I think is probably the greatest thinker. His philosophy has been misused by a lot of people, unfortunately, in history, but I think he was just the most pragmatic, sharp thinker. And this quote, I have to remember it accurately, but I think it says, "No one is more inferior than the person who insists on being equal." And
Mm.
so it's not about trying to match up to somebody. Equality unfortunately doesn't exist and never will. And so don't forget, don't I think it's pointless to try to focus on being as equal as somebody else. I think it's about building
Yeah.
your own strength within in your own direction and path. So I think these are the three quotes that I would leave for you to use with somebody else. So
Those are so good, man. Uh, Matthias, do you have any projects or anything that you're very upcoming that you're very excited and want to share with people?
yeah, I'm working on a series right now with GoPro and Thule. Yeah, and I'm trying to do a first ski base jump in the Alps, maybe this March or end of May, early June, based on the conditions. And I'm recording my whole journey and training and on how to get there. And the series will come out this fall. It'll be a six episode series that will come out in the fall, outlining the whole project. I don't want to give the name away of the mountain, but it's a big face in the Alps near Chamonix that is a tongue of rock, a tongue of ice and snow in between rocks, and that require steep skiing, engaged alpinism, and rope manipulations, and that will end up into a big ski base jump. So that's what I'm working on right now, and I'm really excited about it.
I'm excited for it too. Just hearing about it. If people want to learn more about you, where should they go? Where do you want them to go?
Obviously, if do a fair amount of public speaking, things like that. So if people are interested in sharing some thoughts and content at an event, they can reach out through my website, which is superfrenchie.com. And as far as social media goes, Super Frenchie official on Instagram, and YouTube is, yeah, Super Frenchie on YouTube. And that's it. I'm working a lot of projects on all three of these platforms, and yeah, more to come. And I'm slowly working on a book as well. So
Awesome, and I'm gonna link all the your socials and stuff in the show notes of this episode, so that'll all be in there.
thank you,
Um,
Martin.
yeah, thank you for being on my show. This is an absolute honor. I'm so glad you took the time out of your schedule to have a conversation with me, uh, and I just enjoyed just the banter right away, and even from just a friendship. So, yeah, I'm just honored, just excited about your future, and thank you so much for just for being on my podcast. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate your flexibility. First time we had to actually cancel because I had to jump off a cliff. Second time because I had to get a camera in my eye. And finally, third time's a charm. So I'm glad we got to do this. Thanks for having me.